that, and what made you decide to go that route?
Sure. So, one thing that I have always been an advocate of, not just in this business, but in my personal life, is always wanting things to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, with being fair in the fashion industry, we get into things about wages, we get into things about sustainability, and we get into, like I said, premium product. Because what you'll have a company that sometimes you have brands that start off as premium, and as they begin to get a lot of consumers, it becomes mass produced. So when you're able to mass produce something, it's being made at such a large quantity that you can buy material in bulk. You can pay multiple workers, and you can pay them a lower minimum wage. So one of the things, I never wanted to compromise on the material.
Yes.
So that's a non-negotiable for me. So with the pricing of my sneakers, there's a very low profit margin for me. And that's because I wanted to focus more on what I was giving people. I was wanting to focus on the quality, and not only just what the consumer gets, but the people who are making the sneakers. They are not mass produced, they're handcrafted. So these are people making these sneakers by hand. So I wanted them to get paid a livable wage, well, beyond a livable wage, because you hear livable wage, and that's literally all you could do is live where you pay rent.
Right.
But you can't do much beyond that. So I wanted the wages to be fair. I wanted to offer premium material, and I wanted it to be quality. So all of those things play a factor, because when you have people that are getting a wage that they're happy with, they're happy. So they're going to put that into what they're making because they feel good about what they're doing. And then to source quality material, that costs, you know what I mean? Especially.
So for those, this is a shoe for those who really understand craftsmanship, for those who like the Bentleys and the Rolls Royces, you know, who understand the power of an artisan, and how when you're putting all this together, it's really good. And I'm really, I want to make sure before we wrap up that we get to, because I'm hearing the bigger vision, and I'm seeing your, you know, the divine journey that you've been on, and it's been leading to something we talked about, the I Fund Women. Because when you're talking about being a person of color in this fashion industry, where you are making decisions of that to that level, what have been your struggles, and what has caused you to seek to find an answer within the context?
Yes, absolutely. That's an awesome question. And I'm glad you asked it, because it reminded me to go back to it, because it's such an important thing of the journey I'm on currently. Is so in all of the building of J. Marie, I ran into a lot of people trying to change what my vision was to try to fit what was going on. There is a huge sneaker culture that is like, it's the sneakerhead culture, where it's related to sports, and it's very male dominated.
Yes.
And a lot of times, if you don't fit in, well, like you brought up earlier, a lot of people don't start sneaker brands, shoe brands. That's not something that most people, you know, it's not abundant. It's a very particular companies that has had a monopoly for years, and nobody has even penetrated it to the level to compete with them. You know what I mean? It's kind of, you got your like a Gucci or Chanel, Prada. Those are long-standing Italian fashion brands. Correct. Yeah, fashion houses that has been around for centuries, and they have a monopoly on the industry of not only just not sneakers, because I'm talking about two different things here. There's one aspect of the sneakerhead culture, and then there's that aspect of those Italian houses, right? Those Italian fashion houses. So it makes the barrier to entry very, very hard. So you're competing with the fashion houses on a aesthetically, because when you're doing a lifestyle brand, you have to compete aesthetically, because that's what makes the consumer say, I want that, because they're giving you a perceived lifestyle. So that's one thing that I'm competing with that is very male dominated, and a lot of the people that are behind those fashion houses are families that have been in the industry for years and years and years, where they have
and like you said,
they have relationships with top photographers, relationships with locations, relationships with so many different things that it is a very,
including textiles.
Yes. Yes, that is so true.
Yeah.
They have such a barrier to entry that it is extremely hard to even penetrate it from that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So the end that people do try to compete on, which is entering at the lower end of that, not to say that the sneakerhead culture is a lower in terms of value, but it's a yeah, it's an easier way to penetrate it, but that too is so male dominated because it's a male centric idea of gym shoes. You know, it's related to sports, it's related to music, and it's kind of like when you get to talking about these kind of sneakers, it's like, don't nobody want to hear that. Nobody's wearing that. So it's like you got you're getting blocked on two ends, and when you kind of pull back the curtains of, well, who's behind these different things, you start to find out that it's an old boys club.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe I'm hopeful wishing, but I want to say, hey, we deserve a seat at that table. You know what I mean? I know years ago people looked at Kanye like he was crazy when he was going through his whole back and forth with at the time I think it was Reebok.
Yeah, I think.
Or I may be wrong.
With one of those
things. But he was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, even with Louis Vuitton, he was saying the same thing. Like, you guys pay attention to this because we're being cut off. There's a ceiling here and you can't penetrate it. And the only way that you can penetrate it is for them to use your likeness and sell it. But you can't sit at this table. And Kanye at the time, he was trying to combat that because he was like, you guys wake up, you don't realize as much money as we're making, you don't think we have premium ideas, you don't think we want to make the same stuff, why do you think every artist is only wearing these certain brands? It's because you can't sit at that table unless you want to be, you can represent the brand and you can help us sell it, but you definitely can't sit at that table as one of us and equity, you know,
and have equity stake.
Right. Right. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people laugh at me, because they were like, if Kanye couldn't do it, what would make you think you can do it? I mean, he was Kanye. So, but you know what I mean? Who knows? You never know.
I want to say the first person that just came to my mind is Madam C.J. Walker. It's in our blood to win.
Yes.
Doing it, staying true to your vision. Doing what you're doing, extremely impressed on how you have been deliberate in the last several weeks of doing podcasts, doing interviews, exposing yourself beyond, you know, because there's grassroots always work. Grassroots always work.
And I think, and that is not to say that other people that try to penetrate those things haven't done those things, but I think what I have that maybe Kanye didn't have is that I can relate to the people that are still like me. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like, Kanye, okay, you're one of them. You're living in Calabasas somewhere. So, you know, get out of here. Yeah. But if I can say, you guys, you know, now I'm trying to do what he's doing and I see what he's talking about, but now it's from an aspect of a woman. And that's where I Fund Women comes in, because not only did I start realizing that this was happening, I started noticing that a lot of brands were stealing my designs. And I think as fashion designers or any kind of designer, we see that a lot. You see where you're kind of, you know, your ideas are used and you're not given the credit that you deserve. And most people will say, well, you stole it from them because they're bigger.
Right.
So one of the reasons for iFund, so iFund Women was just kind of a way to get some funds raised to kind of address. I know it's not going to be something I could do in one breath, you know what I mean, or one taken, but it's a start to start putting some things in place to begin to address those scenarios, like the male-dominated barrier to entry, protecting my design. So that's what that funding is for. It's a campaign called I Fund Women that you can find on my website. If you click on Fund J. Marie, you actually can see the whole video of me explaining what it would be used for and why I'm doing the campaign.
Wow, I salute you for so many reasons, J. Marie.
Thank you.
I want you all to
Thank
make
you.
sure that you follow her right now on her Instagram, and also go to her website. Let me get that right. Website J Marie. That's that letter J Marie, Marie, premium sneaker